In the first session, let me first welcome Ma'am Reena Singh, Chief Data Officer, Department of Health and Family Welfare. She would be chairing the session 1, which is on open data for innovation and socio-economic development. Ma'am, I request you to please occupy the. Let's give a big hand as ma'am. One second.
Is available in the public forum, and it's also published on the OGD platform. This data has had immense uses in the country. This data has it has shown how the performance of various parameters, the maternal health, the child health, the immunization, the deliveries, how it is impacting the society and specific dimensions of the economy. And based on this, the government has initiated several schemes. They have monitored the schemes and they are able to come out with various policy decisions. The research, the academia, they have used it for research work. The students have also used it for research work. And some students, of course, they have used it for cramming and passing their exams, but that's on a lighter note. The NGOs have used it, the international organizations, they are using it to identify the focused areas which need intervention and so that they can advocate for policy changes by the government. So as we understand this, the different stakeholders who use open data, for example, the NFHS, as I just now elaborated, it demonstrates the power of open data. And Open Government Data Platform is an initiative which is taken by the government under the NDSAP policy of MIghty. And it's an excellent initiative where database from different dimensions of the government are put together under one roof, under one umbrella for the users to use it. So with this now, I welcome all the panelists here. And we have one of Mr. Rachint is yet to join, but 3 of the panelists are here. They are the industry experts. And I'm sure that the discussions in this session will be extremely fruitful in understanding the different perspectives from our industry experts. And I think I'll start with Mr. Naveen Francis. So he has contributed a lot in the OpenStreetMap. And as far as I understand, but of course I'll open the forum to him. So basically it's the maps, they make it open to the stakeholders for customizing it and thereafter using it. So the public or the government or people, the stakeholders, they can use it to come out with specific policy decisions in relief operations and so on and so forth. And he has contributed immensely in this, and it's a very innovative area. So I request Mr. Naveen to elaborate your use case for the audience. You have 7 minutes. And will someone note the time? Yeah, 7 minutes. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Naveen Francis. I'm basically a volunteer for OpenStreetMap. So what I do is I map roads and other, like mainly roads. I like to map roads, basically highways. So before starting my presentation, I just wanted to have a puzzle, like how to find out some complex questions, like how many districts in India is not connected by railway. So how to solve that problem? So we need spatial data or other mechanisms to find out how many districts are not connected, so that we can make a policy decisions to connect all districts in India with the railway. So other question is like how many taluks in Rajasthan or any state which doesn't have a hospital. So hospital is one of the necessity. So these are just a puzzle. So how we solve these issues, I will just demonstrate in the last. So this was the state of OpenStreetMap when it is started in it started in 2004. 2004, and in India we picked it a little late by 2007. After a while, so this is the current data in the OpenStreetMap. So it has from India total road length is like about 64 lakh kilometers if you consider all the rural roads including. So right now we have about 35 lakhs kilometers or 40 lakhs, up to that much we have mapped. Still rural roads and other roads are yet to be mapped. So all this happened because of the community engagement. So we have community spread across every place in India. So we conduct meetups, we have get-togethers, birthday celebration like that, and we go out to the field and map. So if you consider the other different attributes, so we make sure that our database is the latest, so that we go through the Indian gazettes. If basically the districts are divided by the state government, so we go through each state government's gazettes and make sure that which are the districts newly formed, so that we keep the OSM up to date with the latest number of districts in India. So same thing we try to do with the sub-districts also. So we have about 6,490 sub-districts right now in an OpenStreetMap map. And the highway, this is one of the projects which we all started about in starting itself. Then whenever the new gazettes comes, we map that one. So right now, out of 144 kilometers in India, state national highways, we already mapped 136,000. Good thing is whatever the data we created was used in the Bharatmala planning of Bharatmala projects, actually, Bharatmala project. So how we do this one is we go to each gazettes. Whenever the government publishes one gazette, we go to the notification and we identify which is that highway, and then we map the highway in the OpenStreetMap. So state highway, we have about 2 lakh kilometers. So in that we have about only 1 lakh kilometers, because main problem of mapping state highway is we don't have a list of state highways from all the states. So this is one of the concerns we raised, and we tried to file RTIs to get the list of the state highways so that we can map. So this is the Karnataka state highway maps. Water resources, almost we have all the mapped water resources, because it is easy to map from referring to the satellite imagery. So we have most of this Ganga river basin, Kaveri river basin, almost everything is there. This is one of the a paper report which use the OpenStreetMap data to report the India's most polluted water. So they use the data from the OpenStreetMap to showcase this one. And we have mapped all the national parks whichever is there. So if you go to any website, you will not be able to get the boundaries of the national park. So to make it freely available, we have mapped all the first priority national parks. Second, wildlife sanctuaries also we mapped. So all the 543 wildlife sanctuary mapped in OpenStreetMap. Another thing is to get the maps internationalized actually. So if I come from Kerala and come here, if you go to any other applications, you will not be able to read the map with my local language. So here the idea is to have, if any person goes to any part of India, he should be able to read the map in his language. So the idea is to translate every places in India to all other languages. So that is the idea. So this is also ongoing. This is done through we add the place names, and all Wikipedia, in each Wikipedia there is a plugin which translates that and displays that map actually. So the linked operand data. So this is something which we have not tried in India much. So the linked operand data is like, OpenStreetMap has only the geospatial data. So all the attributes like population. So if you want to tie up that data and query with that other database, we need linking of two open data sets actually. So this is done through like, mainly we are doing it through something called Wikidata. So when Tim suggested about the open data, there were the 5 levels of open data. Just first was the PDF, it is just a readable thing. Second was the mission readable. Then it was CSV, then the RDF. The last one, highest level of the open data is considered as the linked open data. So that you will be able to query multiple data sets like if you think like if you want to evacuate, some flood is going to happen in Ganga. So how many population is there? How much population? How much people has to be moved from that in 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer? You need the linked open data, so that you have the spatial data. Also, you have the data of the population relate in the other data open data set. So that is the idea of linked open data. So here, this is an example of linked open data. So we marked all the local bodies, means municipalities in Kerala inside the OpenStreetMap, and it is linked through the Wikidata, and it is displayed in the Wikipedia. So this is an example of how the linked open data works. So this is how we use the data.gov.in's data. So this is done by like Facebook. They employed the people from Indian company, and whatever the open data set was there released by the data.gov from the health, all the health facilities are already released through the data.gov.in. Then they employed the people and made sure all the health facilities are up to date in the OpenStreetMap. So what they did is like they took the database, cleaned up the database, and updated the OpenStreetMap. So the details are there in this diary. So the challenges which we saw is like, if you see the actual data point of this particular eye institute was little far away, and when we looked into the data set, the actual data point which we got from the database was on the road actually. So it has to be corrected to actual building. So that this was a challenge. And if you see the right side, left side image, there were the hospitals which were not in India actually. So whatever the data set we got, some of the hospitals or the health facilities was marked because of the wrong data. So this cleanup had to be done, then we had to import. So that is one challenge which we had from the data sets which we got from the data.gov.in. So after this project, lot of health facilities was updated into the OSM. So this project is with that was the engagement with the central government. I just want to showcase one engagement with the state government. So this was a project which we started after the Kerala floods in 2018. So we were involved in Kerala floods to share the data, spatial data during the flood actually. So after understanding the importance of the data, so the chief secretary, IT secretary called us and asked how can we improve before the next disaster, how can we more resilient and what can be done. So we told we need to create a project then we consulted with him, and over the period of time they created a project called Mapathon Kerala and sanctioned about 4 crores so that a lot of data can be whatever were there in the government side, so that can be imported to OpenStreetMap and can be used in the later stages actually. So this was the initial discussions, and it was done by the KSDI team of the IT mission. And they did a lot of things like promotional materials. So how they did is they engaged a lot of college students from the NSS, and they trained the college students as part of NSS credit program. They engage them so that they had to map something so in order to get the credit. So about 50,000 buildings were added. Idea of getting the streams, which are the streams, smaller streams, they mapped about 38,000 streams were mapped. The roads were, lot of roads were mapped. Then they mapped lot of schools. And another thing was they mapped lot of Anganwadis. They trained a lot of Anganwadi teachers also to make sure that all the Anganwadis are mapped. So these were some of the map tools which they created for the purpose. And going to the one more level, so we engaged with Puducherry Panchayat. So this was a tie-up with IIT Palakkad. So they wanted to do some social, so they are part of CSR. So we told that wherever the IIT is located, they wanted to map that panchayat clearly. So that was one project. And where we were used, the data was used, I already told for the Kerala rescue, for flood 2018, it was used extensively. For the Corona, it was used. Basically, this was the secretary from, Snehil was the secretary of the Kochi Corporation. During the lockdown, they wanted to identify the areas of maximum COVID and wanted to have a spatial analysis and lock down that particular area. So the ward map was created at that point in time from our volunteers. So this was the another map which the Malayalam Daily published after the local body elections, so that all the results are published in a neat way. So these are the companies which are using the OpenStreetMap. So recently you heard noticed the Ola Maps are released. So Ola Maps is basically attributed to the OpenStreetMap. So all the main data comes from the OpenStreetMap. And the Somata is using for the internal purpose. Swiggy is using all the big players like Apple, Facebook, Uber, and Amazon Logics. Basically, these companies have a lot of employees in India, in Hyderabad, to map to the OpenStreetMap. They get the data points during their deliveries and they clean up the data and upload to the OpenStreetMap. So, few things which are the important data sets which we are looking. So these are the listed important data sets which a government should be releasing to the public so that the public can use these data. So basically the emergency things, transportation things, police crimes, school geo points. So what specific to our theme, so these are the things which from the geospatial things which I request the government to release, like boundaries of districts, political boundaries, school location, pin code boundaries, fire and rescue station locations, police station boundaries, financial institutions like bank and ATMs. So then few suggestions how to engage the community. So one of the important thing is to engage the open data communities like Data Meet and Open Data Kerala, celebrating Open Data Day, engaging open data volunteers during the disaster management and building resilience. So one thing which we noticed is during the disaster is only that we know what is the data which is so important, so that we can work for after the disaster is there, so we can have to work towards that data. So that is one thing. Having a straight ranking for the open data, so that if there is a competition between the states, there will be always a good effort from the states to release the data in the open domain. Pushing the state governments and local bodies to incorporate open data policy. I think already the smart cities 100 smart cities has incorporated the open data policy. So these are the few suggestions. These are the few links which you can contact if you wanted to volunteer to OpenStreetMap and contribute to OpenStreetMap. So just I told, Google was not someone who contribute to open data, but during the disaster like COVID, the Sundar Pichai itself has told they have created a platform where all the data from the OpenStreetMap and other things can be used in their platform. So that is the idea. So the importance of OpenStreetMap. Thank you.
So thank you. It was a very interesting presentation. And one of the basic necessities for all of us is to reaching out to the health facilities in times of need. And your maps. So if it's projecting the health facilities the geospatial maps, then so that is one of the best use that the data can actually be put to. And the another important thing is the interoperability of these maps. So that's a fantastic idea which has enormous benefits. And so it's a very useful presentation. And so now we move on to Mr. John, How India Lives. So he is the co-founder of How India Lives. And now here we will see another dimension of health as to how it has immensely impacted the urban health. So basically, they aggregate the openly available data and project it, they visualize it, and come out with some correlations and analysis on how best to improve health. Over to you. 7 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks for the opportunity to present our case, How India Lives. I will not take much time. I will just have three portions. One is that I'll explain who we are, and two examples of work that we have done. One is a data product. The other is on the editorial space. So if I exceed 7 minutes, raise your hand. I'll stop. Don't worry. Sure. So why we started How India Lives? I don't know. If you had all the information I have now, I would not have started. So our imagination was different, but reality was completely different. But no regrets. Our vision was that we saw a lot of value and insights in public data, and people weren't mining it. And myself and two other founders, all journalists working in Economic Times at that time, and we decided, can we bring together, can we build something smart around public data, and so that people can be better informed and at the same time can take smart decisions. So that was our idea, and that's how we started How India Lives. And what did we solve? I know I'm preaching to the choir. You all know what the problem here is, and open data has solved a lot of this problem. Data resides in silos, and when we started, we asked a very basic question: how many districts are there in India? And so if you go to census 2011, at that time 2015, it will say 640, and then you go to RBI, which releases the quarterly data on savings and deposits. My memory is pretty bad, but it's around 593. And during COVID, when we try to do the district level data, it's always a question whether it's 723, 717 or 735. So we never had a thing. So what happened is that when you have data residing in silos, they don't talk to each other. And then the data is always in different formats, and HTML, PDFs and all of that. So our idea was very simple: make one data source talk to another data source, so that you can have better insights from making, like what Naveen is saying. There is greater insight by enabling one data source to talk to another data source. So that was our abiding principle, and that's how we built our products and solution. Yeah. So this is what we saw, like I explained. So what we do is that we operate in 5 different spaces. One is that understand where the data is. She's from the health ministry, and health ministry releases not just NFHS. They used to release HMIS data also, which is fortnightly data tracking multiple health indicators at sub-district level. Very valuable data. So if you have to actually work efficiently with data, open data especially, the prerequisite is that you need to understand where the data is residing and what can you do with the data. So that was our first building block. We mapped departments, data sets, what are the metrics, and then how we can use it. So then, obviously, the technology part, and the most important part, we feel there are a lot of companies who do data plus technology, but we come from a storytelling background. The storytelling aspect is what is missing. You can give a dashboard, or you can provide a great interface, but what is that you want to convey through that? And it has to be in multi-format. It can't be just one format. It can be storylines, a video, or any format. But storylining is very important. So that is what we do. And so I'll just skip all of this. I want to spend some time on this one product that we have developed, and what we call it is a socio-economic profiler. And what is that we were trying to solve here is that 3/4 of Indians, or 3/4 of India's households don't have credit score. So if you don't have a credit score, you can't actually get loans from a organized financial institution. So which means that you are at the mercy of unorganized people, and you have to pay high interest rate. And there were a couple of companies who are in the space, they're assessing the credit worthiness of people in the who don't have a credit score. And what they usually do is that they go to a telecom company and get their telecom bills and try to analyze the bills. And usually it doesn't have the consent of the people who are paying the telecom bill or the thing. So what we said is that how can we address this issue, wherein we design a product which doesn't take any personal data, but at the same time can give insights to financial institutions to this. So what we did is that can we build a proxy affluence parameter just using public data and some points of interest data. And what we have done is that, imagine what would have certainly helped would be like Census 2021 being available. So that is the base building block, and then we have the survey data on top of it. And the third layer is the satellite data, both built up and night lights. And the fourth layer is the points of interest data. I always joke that my biggest mistake or investment is that I bought a flat in back and beyond Gurgaon, where you can essentially buy the same flat at the same price I bought at 10 years back, because the area is so bad. So when I moved in there 7 or 8 years back, there was no restaurant, there is no shops to go. You have to essentially cross the railway track, wait for 10 minutes for the railway track gate to open to go to the civilized part of the, I'm not sure that call it a civilized part, but at least the place where shops were there. So, but now, 8 years after I moved in, I have fine dining restaurants, I have private bank ATMs, and I have everything around my house, right? And it tells us something about that area. We just use that knowledge to tell people how to assess the affluence of an area, and this goes as a parameter inside a bank's financial institution for them to make a decision. We don't take a decision, we just give them the data and then they take the thing. So moderately successful product, 250,000 loan applications are processed every month. 4 financial institutions are using it, and hopefully we have solved little bit of enabling access to people who don't have a credit score. So this is the first product that I want to think. The other is that since we all come from the journalism background, we have a tie-up with Mint, India's financial newspaper, and also Hindustan Times. And what we do is that our vision is that there are a lot of data sources where people are not telling stories out of it. So I'll give you 2 examples and then I'll close. One example is that DICE, the school data, and they have unit level data, right? So people, if you look at the dropout ratio, right? Especially when girls reach 9 to 12 years, 13 years, researchers, you will be familiar why they are dropping out. So they will drop out, and for very simple reason, it could be that the school doesn't have a functioning toilet. That's an essential thing, right? So what we did is that this for a story we did for Mint, is that we looked at all the unit level data of all the schools with the toilet facilities, and they also have a data saying that how much is whether the toilets are working or not. And we were able to correlate the dropout ratio. I mean, it could be, I'm an econometric student. It's just a correlation. It's not a thing, but we were able to correlate the dropout ratio to the schools not having functioning toilets. And we did a story using that. And then another example of a story that we did is that with the census. I'll tell you this example. Who got a land in Gurgaon and when? So if you get a time, it's an interactive. What we did is that it's not really open data. We filed or we got it from the website. We went to the municipal commission in Gurgaon and we said, can you give us all the housing licenses that you have provided from 1980s, right? So we got the data. I know you all would have faced processing open data. There is a special set of data sets. I really shudder to think. It's called scanned PDFs. Somebody takes a printout of a Excel sheet and then uploads, scans the Excel sheets and then uploads in the government website. Very, very tough to process the data, and the scan is also of great quality. You can't even have an OCR to do that. So somehow we got the data of all the housing licenses that were given in Gurgaon from 1980s. And then what the question that we asked is that, how did Gurgaon got built? Where Gurgaon, which area got developed first? And if you look at it, the biggest bubble is when the 2008 onwards, the global financial crisis hit, and it hit India with a lag of 3 to 4 years when the housing crisis happened. What happened? During that time, all the real estate developers, they built huge land bank. They had money, but they invested everything in a land bank and they built huge lands. And what happened? They're unable to sell after 2012. And you have the crisis even now, and I'm one of the victims. My house is still an undervalued house because the builder hasn't completed the house properly. Okay, so these are two examples that I want to think, and this one is that. And if there is a couple of requests, you have, I see very familiar faces who are working in this space for a long time, and one is that one big request from our side is that if we can have regularity of the data, for example, 2 years back, Fertilizer Ministry started releasing district level data on consumption, beautiful data. Why? Because your rainfall determines the amount of land being sown, right? And what are the other indicators? Proxy indicators can tell you whether the rural economy is doing well or not, is your fertilizer consumption, right? Beautiful data for everybody to know where the fertilizer consumption is going up, where the fertilizer consumption is going down. But I don't know, suddenly the data stopped coming, this thing. So if we can have an uniformity of the data release, that's one request I have. The second request I have is that MOSPI has started this compendium of data sources. And if you have, go to Ministry of Statistics, they've come out with a book. Yes, all the data sources and just describing in a page. Something like that as a ready reckoner could be a great way to educate. The first pillar is that knowing where the data is. And I mean, if we can educate people where the data is and what metrics are there, that can be a good starting point. So I hope I was within 8 minutes, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. So regarding the metadata compendium that you talked about, my colleague Vanna is there from MOSPI Computer Center, and I can tell you and maybe assure you also from her behalf that they are working on the updation of the metadata, because we from Ministry of Health, I mean, we have received requests from them to update our metadata sets. And other than, you're very right, other than HMIS, there are many other administrative data portals of our ministry, whether it is the NACO or there are the RCH portal and several other portals. So if you haven't explored them, you could explore them as well. And also, I can tell you that the OGD team, the NIC team, they are really very active in getting all ministries onboarded and getting us to upload our data as regularly as possible and as much as possible, I can tell you, because we have been receiving persistent requests, and we on our ourselves also from the ministries, we also feel that definitely keeping data hidden or in silos doesn't serve any purpose. It's for the people, by the people, and people should use it. So we make constant attempts to share the data, and it's a wonderful initiative that you have taken. Putting together all data together wherever you can. Of course, challenges are there. Challenges are there in every field, but I can see that you have overcome. I mean, you are trying to overcome, and so you have actually taken the discussion a step further from not only data to open data, but to storytelling of data. So which is actually important to reach out to the people and for even for the policy makers to understand, yeah, this is the data, this is, we are making it open, but then this is what the story is telling us, and this is where we actually need to intervene and, take it forward. So thank you, Mr. John. It was very insightful. Now I move on to Mr. Kabir. He has contributed immensely in the Open Contracting India, and so their platform, they have a real-time system of having the contracts and the tender documents or whatever. I'm sure he'll elaborate on that. But and it helps. It is very citizen-centric as far as as per my limited knowledge goes. But I'll request Mr. Kabir to please elaborate on your project. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. All right. So before we start, just wanted to give a brief background of who we are and how we actually work. So we at Civic Data Lab actually work a lot with open data. And thanks to actually Mr. John setting up the field over here, that one of the key part becomes storytelling. It's not just the dashboard, right? So we work with open data to develop different kind of use cases to demonstrate the value in using open data, then work with different stakeholders, mostly government actors, different departments and states, to develop platform to be able to consume the insights, to make decisions more timely, more efficiently, more data backed, and ultimately hope towards building a culture of data-centered approaches, which again leads back to more open data out there for everyone to collaborate and work together with. We work across different verticals, but today we'll just focus on one particular vertical, Open Contracting India, where I'll be briefly presenting 3 case studies. So India spends a large amount of its money on public procurement. Around 20 to 25% of our GDP goes as a part of public procurement. That is government purchasing different goods, works and services through what is more popularly called as tenders. It's a very important data set which often goes missing when we are talking about public expenditure. So of course, moving to e-procurement has helped enormously in now digitizing this data. However, this data largely still is not accessible in open format. It does sit behind CAPTCHA, and which limits leveraging this very important data source for decision making, and actually being able to drive development with a positive outlook. But actually government of Assam became first state to share this data on OGD, and they did share 6 years of public procurement data, and mapped in OCDS format, which is Open Contracting Data Standards, which also allows to read data in more efficient manner. And because this happened, we were able to cultivate 3 different examples to show how it has been used. And for this, we worked very closely with the Finance Department of Government of Assam, so I would really like to thank them as well over here. The first part was to demonstrate, now that the data is out there, how it could be used to monitor efficiency and the whole process of public procurement to ensure that there's healthy competition, there's transparency, things are happening on a timely basis. The second part was now, and I'm so glad that Reena ma'am is sitting over here, because the second case study is around how public procurement can be seen as a way to identify public health financing gap, and we look into the case of maternal and child care. And the third part is, and again, building on what Mr. Naveen was talking about from OSM, how open data and public procurement data became central on the aspects of managing disasters in a better manner. So this is just an example of a very simple dashboard which was possible just because the data was out there. So this dashboard was allowed to look at department-wise, year-wise, how public procurements have happened. And very small, basic indicators were able to allow actually to see the performance of department. As simple as how many data are now, how many tenders happen through e-tenders, right? So that, and we can see there is a lot of positive movement in the direction. So we did build this particular platform called Assam Public Procurement Explorer, where all this data set is available, and it is actually again powered by OGD, thanks to it. Over here, we have also built certain key performing indicators. Using these indicators, the government is actually able to see where they need to work a bit more on for improvement, which resulted in very proactive consultation and stakeholder and training programs. Following this, now Government of Assam has actually started doing something called public procurement plans. So the departments submit how they are going to spend money for the coming year, and they look back at the data, see how actually they have been doing. So as to the procurement is scattered across the 4 quarters of financial years in a more efficient manner again. So the second study is around public health financing gaps in Assam. So the infant mortality rates in Assam are particularly alarming. So, but this is not consistent when we look across the state. So when we look geographically, of course, there is a division between urban and rural rates, then of course about district level, how the things are changing. So we mapped infant mortality rate to see where actually the things are more concerning and where things are relatively better. Blue doesn't mean great, but it is a relative indicator, so it is relatively better over there. And the government has been taking a lot of proactive steps to be able to address this issue. So there are multiple schemes through which resources are mobilized to address the issue of maternal and child health. But once we try to see how through these schemes, tenders specifically have been floated for the case of maternal and child health. And we realized out of 13 different schemes, which was central and state scheme, 4 actually had majority of tenders under them. And these are mentioned over here. And most of the tenders were around construction of certain district hospitals, maternity ward, and things like that. So we then mapped the tender data onto the Assam and saw how those were scattered. And this was done by count and by value. So more number of tenders do not mean more money, because the value might be smaller compared to one tender, which is a huge amount. And then we were able to overlay that. So we can see where the demand is more of attention versus where the money is going right now. And this is still limiting because we're using just one particular data set, that is public procurement. So this is seen through the lens of public procurement, but the expenditure happen in a lot of other ways as well. So, but this tells about primarily infrastructure projects and how they are being prioritized. So we see where, for example, the southern district of Kasar is a district which is ranking where the IMR is really alarming, and comparatively the tenders over here going are not that great. So we took it to NHM as well, and it was received extremely positively. And it is really good to see when the data and the stories are shared with decision makers, there are proactive actions taken to address them as well. And the third and the final study over here is how tenders could also allow to help better in the case of disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation. So as we're sitting over here, we are all aware that things in Assam are not looking very great. So Assam does see annual flooding year after year with a major devastation. And of course, a lot of money also goes into it. So the thing is, but when the money is spent, it's very difficult to track because we are in the moment of crisis where it should be prioritized and on what kinds of projects. So money going does not actually often result in building resilience. It might be spot fixing. It might be going into places where it's not needed the most because one data source cannot give the complete picture. So looking at the tenders data 5 years, we were able to isolate different kinds of tenders which were related to flood management. So these were tenders around building new structures like embankments, dams, bridges. They were about repair. They were about procuring technology for better research. For example, getting drones for high resolution imagery during the season of floods, where the inundations are, where the animals are trapped. Just the flood tenders tell a lot of stories on how they're changing over time. So then we were able to map it on the Assam at revenue circle level and overlay it where the losses and damage has been highest in past 5 years. Using this method, we were able to develop a very actionable insights in a manner. So every year the money is going, but money might not be going to the location which requires the most. Additionally, or onto the project which are helping build long-term resilience. So most of the money might be going in repair and retrofitting where something else is needed. Most of the money might be going in a particular breach which happens in a similar stretch year after year. So when we have this data out there, it allows decision makers to be able to take more informed decision in the middle of crisis as well, when there's very limited bandwidth actually to conduct a new research altogether. This is something that now we did a pilot and now we are actually developing the solution to be deployed. Within 2 months, again, it will all be open data, and in this solution, we're also, other than public procurement data, we have pulled data from around 10 plus different data sources and made it interoperable. So that is the huge part of this particular project. And just building upon other panelists over here, last few suggestion requests which might help enormously to take this cause further. So one thing that we are saying, these are just 2 or 3 stories that we did with the state of Assam because the data was there. So if more states were to share public procurement data, it would help enormously to not just look at the efficiency from the business and finance lens of public procurement as a tool, but also looking at public procurement as a tool for development of different socioeconomic variables. Secondly, the idea was that if the data is shared, if it could be in a particular data standards, because then again, it becomes a huge issue to be able to just work with the data. For example, just a small example, for every data we had to geocode it, and there's no geocoding by default. But even if the tenders mention location and decide on the scale of mentioning location, it could work perfectly. So following a data standard really allows that to happen. Then we are always there willing to help and work with the departments which might want to publish the data. So more than happy if any of the person sitting over here might want to volunteer. And ultimately, we would like to do more use cases and see how it actually can be leveraged. So this was around maternal child health and floods specifically, but we are looking forward to look at different kinds of cases, specifically on public health currently, to see how we can move for better distribution of resources. And ultimately, what the whole discussion over here is about, we hope to strengthen the open data ecosystem and data-driven decision-making in this space of governance and decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kabir. That was very innovatively you have explained. And I think here again, the platform your platform has opened up to storytelling, which our previous panelists had talked about. So entire data that is there you have put together, and you have tried to visualize and come out with things which are really useful to identify where the gaps are, where the funds are going, and where they are required to go. And so this system has actually has helped in bringing about efficiency, transparency, and public participation, and it's really it has demonstrated really well the use of open data. I'm sure it's tremendously scalable in several other sectors as well. Thank you. Now we move on to our last panelist, Mr. Achint. He is very instrumental in the Bol Bhav, the live Mandi app, and he will tell us, I mean, he will illustrate the use case on how they have been able to strengthen the farmers, and also whether it is scalable to other sectors as well. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies for being late. I had an emergency this morning. So my name is Achint, and I'm from an organization called Gram Hal, and we are working to build a farmer-owned data cooperative. So I'll just give a quick overview of the Mandi system for those who are not familiar. It'll set the context for the product that we build. Basically, for farmers on a daily basis, when they're going to sell their produce, they take it. They either go themselves or they work with a transporter in the village to take their produce to a mandi. Then once the produce is in a mandi, there is an auction held, which looks something like this, where traders bid on every lot that the farmer has bought. And once a bid in auction is held, there's an agreed price. And a farmer receives a receipt like this. It can be either digital or handwritten, which contains details of the product they brought, the price, the date of sale, and the name of the purchaser. These receipts are then tallied at the end of the day in every mandi, and then there are some summary statistics which are calculated, such as the total number of arrivals for each crop, the maximum price, minimum price, and so forth. And then this data is then submitted to a state's mandi authority, which updates on their own state's website as well as to AgMarkNet. And on AgMarkNet, the data is then available through the OGD platform. And this data is crucial to farmers. I cannot stress enough how useful this information is. When a farmer is ready to sell, having very accurate price data is very important and useful in many ways. Farmers can directly use this data to negotiate better prices, to understand what is a fair price in the market, and also evaluate trends, understand when prices are increasing or decreasing, and make a choice of when and where they want to sell their product. Now, as I mentioned, this data is available on the OGD platform. So in order to make it more accessible to farmers where they could easily use it, we developed a WhatsApp chatbot where they could access mandi rates as and when they became available. So farmers could enter the name of their district or which crop they were interested in, and then they would receive a reply having the latest mandi rates available. And we saw tremendous demand of this chatbot. So we launched it in Madhya Pradesh in late 2021. And we quickly saw farmers really keen on using this data and taking up a lot of adoption. And we along with some third parties, did some studies to evaluate what was the impact of this price information. And so I won't go through it, but there was definitely a lot of evidence that just having mandi rates could have an effect on a farmer's income. And moreover, many farmers never had access to this information before. So typically what would happen is they would rely on someone in their, maybe a neighbor or someone who they knew who was going to the mandi, and that too they could only get piecemeal information about maybe a few market prices. However, we noticed a lot of problems with the data that we were getting. There was missing data. Many times the data that was available was updated late and wasn't available in a timely fashion. There were also inaccuracies, so sometimes the maximum price could be lower than the modal price. And also the API access itself had some irregularities. So realizing these problems, what we then built was a crowdsourced solution, which is a mobile app called Bolbhao. And what we do in this is we collect the data that is available from the state's mandi websites as well as from through the OGD platform. But we also have farmers themselves crowdsource the data. So farmers who are going to the mandi, they're encouraged to upload photos of those price receipts. And we collect those as well. And then we make them available in the app along with the centrally collected prices. This then solves a number of problems. The first is that it allows farmers to access very granular data. So as I mentioned, there is a summary of maximum and minimum prices, but it might be a case that in the auction, there was only one lot that went for that maximum price. So when farmers just have that data, it's still not enough to really negotiate a higher price. Also, when you just have price information, there's no information about the quality of the product, which is a big factor in affecting the price variability. When farmers can upload photos, you can see behind the receipt is the photo of the actual product itself. So farmers can actually use that to judge and negotiate higher prices by understanding what is the data of price in a very granular way. Also, it allows a real-time access. So as the auction is going on, these receipts are updated in real time. So farmers can get to know what is happening on the current day rather than waiting for summaries which might come at night or a few days later, which they aren't able to use because, for example, as a farmer, if I want to make a decision to sell tomorrow, I have to arrange for transport today. So I need to know the prices by the afternoon in order to make those arrangements. And there are many challenges which we know that AgMartNet faces when they're collecting the data. First of all, as I mentioned, they are dependent on states' mandi authorities. The mandi staff themselves have limited incentives to collect and upload this data, and it's also a very lengthy process for them to do. So we have a number of, even then, with the data itself, we have a number of recommendations as a stakeholder using this data that we could give based on our experience. I won't go into the details right now, but definitely would love to have a conversation with anyone from NIC team. The other thing I want to mention is that we are not the only ones using the mandi price data. This data is used by many, many websites. Almost every agri-tech startup in India or every even state website which has an app, they keep the mandi price information there because they know it's so much in demand by farmers. And therefore, if we can improve the quality of the API access and the data, it's not just about the work Gramhal or Bolbhav is doing, but it has a spillover effect. There are many stakeholders who will benefit from this. And yes, that's just a summary. And I think, yeah, I'll conclude here.
So thank you, Mr. Rachin. That was very interesting and useful for us. You have shown how you have actually leveraged the technology to strengthen the decision-making abilities of the farmers. And you have also talked about some recommendations and suggestions and the challenges that you have faced during this process. So that's a wonderful initiative. Thank you. Now, how much time is available? Should we open the floor for? Yeah. Right. So let's open the floor for question answers. Questions, if any, from the audience for our panelists. Right. So no question. Yes. Yeah. Please introduce yourself and.
Hi, I am Dr. Harpreet from the Indian Council of Medical Research. So question is, very different from the area that I work in. So you showed very interesting applications where you're using open data. What is your financial model? Because you must be spending a lot of money in your companies. How you are sustaining this? Maybe any one of you can answer.
So who would like to take the question? Yeah.
Mike.
Hi. Can you hear me? Yeah. So we set up as a for-profit company. So every data product that we have to develop has a significant initial cost, and only then you can launch a product. So and you have to recover over a period of time. So the entire data product market now is on a SaaS model, wherein you use and you pay. It's not based on one fixed amount that you do. So that's what we do. Like what we do is that we have a API which the financial institutions call for, And within 40 seconds, we send the data back. And for every call, we have a pricing. And we also have a cost because what the financial institutions will send us is an address. So we have to use a Google API to geocode that it's a lat long. So that's an expense. Within this 40 seconds, we do that. And then, we map and send it back to us. So for any model, so I will divide it into two parts. One is that purely public good, right? Then there is no way that you can be commercial. You have to accept that. There are a couple of products that we launched. It's more in the nature of public good. You are not going to be successful commercially. Accept that fact. So then you have to take a route of funders who believe that product is good, and then all of it. For example, CBGA, Raman is here. The open budget data, such a useful data source, will people pay for it and to cover the cost? I will be very surprised. And not to say that, but the number of people who will use, I think I was talking to Gaurav last month, humongous, huge number of people. So that is the first set. The second set is that if you have a clear value, monetary value, that I can provide for a decision maker, then you can price it. So you have to first decide whether it's a public good or it has a monetary value in terms of decision making. And if you have that, then you can make it easy. And usual caveat, we are still a tiny company. We are not hugely successful, so limited experience.
Naveen can add on that how OSM also has a paid model within it.
Actually, the data in the OSM is freely available. So the OSM works like a Wikipedia. So it is funded by there is a fundraising campaign happens across the world. So OSM raises some fund for the servers and basically to run the servers and the operations cost. Other than that, for the data going out, there is no fund actually. So the maintaining the server cost is the main thing, and we raise some amount to build the community so that if there is a community like a meetup happens or something like that, we can put in the proposal to the OSM groups, working groups. So they will approve the proposal, and then we had the State of Map Asia held in 2018 in Bangalore. So we got the funding from the OSM from the OSM Foundation, so that we can cover up this one, and we will have fundings from the companies also. It was funded by the Microsoft, Facebook. They funds the conferences also. That is.
I think I saw some subscription model also, 2,000 rupee per month for latest update of the maps and something. I'm not sure. It was part of OSM application which I downloaded.
OSM, maybe that may be somebody who is getting OSM's data. They would have used that, and they would have created an application for the subscription. So OSM internally, you can download entire data from the Planet. Actually, there is a website called Planet. Entire data of OSM can be downloaded there for free of cost. It can be like a sub level. Like if you want only the India data, entire data, or India particular road data, like that you can. And there is options to query the data actually. So if you want particular hospitals in India or something like that, you can query the data and download the geospatial data. That is all free. Yeah.
So data is open to all, but after processing part is on your side. So you are processing the data, and the output of the processed data will get impact the citizens. So what happened if so it's negatively impacting, for example, in terms of the agriculture prices or some forecasting of climate related to particularly agriculture where time is very precious. So who will take the accountability in that case? Who is accountable?
Please identify yourself.
I am Asutosh from NIC.
So you're saying, sorry, Mr. Ashutosh, accountability that the data is available in real time?
No, data is available. For example, in your case, you are collecting the data for ECMARTNet. It may be Horticulture Board of India that is also publishing the data. It's a very quite common in a market that in Saturday, Sunday, there is no data. So for if farmer is getting the interested to get the data, you have to do some forecasting or some interpretation of the data. So that methodology with you. So I am just asking if that methodology is something it's beyond your interpretation or something like that, but ultimately impacting the farmers. So who will take the accountability, the output and process data?
That's a good question. And actually, that's why we don't do forecasting, because it definitely has that risk that you might be telling the end user something which is projection or something. And especially in our case, when we are dealing with farmers who have low technical literacy, so we don't even want to take the risk of telling them something which is our interpretation of data. But I think it can be done, but it needs to be done very mindfully and with a full disclaimer that any sort of analysis of the data is being done independently of the data source itself.
Because reading the data through OCR, it's also there is some chances of error, so it may impact the citizens. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? One last question if anyone has something.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you very much for this insightful session from all the 4 panels. I am from the Ministry of Labor and Employment. So actually, I wanted to know if the data sets that you have, could they be extended to the employment data as well? As in the data sets that you control. If that same kind of projection, that same kind of analysis could be used? No, I'm actually speaking to all 4 of them collectively. Like, how would that relate to? Because you're talking about OpenStreet, you're talking about the agricultural data. So how can that be carried forward to employment and employment data, which would be far, useful as well?
I'm audible? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, as I was in my presentation mentioning, that there are different use cases that could be developed. So data, in any kind of analysis, it's basically layering. So for example, a lot of employment data gets layered with migration data or with urbanization data. So if there are data sets that you are willing to share, we would really like to see the analysis and the case study developing out of it. So employment is also being associated with the factor of climate crisis these days or disaster these days. So those kind of case studies are definitely possible if given the data is there, because employment data also is data which is a bit tricky and not that easily available. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'll quickly respond. So if you talk about employment, right, you have to divide by sectors. One is the organized sector, right? EPFO has the data, and they have data at a establishment level, and they update on a monthly basis. So that's a fantastic data. And what is the size of the organized employment? They employ around 6 crore people. We are a population of 140. So you look at a family size of 4. So you're looking at 20% of India's population covered by this database. Then what does this data say? It tells you a lot about the employment pattern, which sectors are going up, which sectors are going down. For example, during the COVID, all my IT friends are doing extremely well. And if I looked at the PF data, it was almost like a 45-degree upward trend. Whereas everybody else, hospitality and industry that are impacted hugely by COVID, had a thing. And employment data, to me, if it is released on a timely basis, is a fantastic indicator of the economy, right? The challenge now comes with the nature of the economy. We are a very small organized economy and a large unorganized employment. If you can, bring that unorganized sector side into the public domain with a minimal delay, that would give a great insight about this large size of the population, the employment. The PLFS answers to a large extent on a quarterly basis, and then in rural areas on an annual basis. But any other data, you should educate us. We are looking for more data, more insights. For example, Shram portal, right, for the unorganized. Yes, Ishram, right? Fantastic. Another great data source, where people are getting registered, what are the type of thing. It may not be accurate, but it tells you the overall magnitude and the direction and where are the people there. So please, if you are from the employment ministry, we would love to have more data sets. You won't believe, you make the data available and there will be at least 10 use cases out of it. I would encourage you.
Dashboard also on the eShram, you can go to eShram.gov.in and then
It has to come to data. It is also there in data.
it is available in dashboard. So you can
eShram data has been pulled into data.gov, so it's also available there. Ma'am would like to.
but if you want insights into the eShram data, you can always go to the portal and then get the more out of it, because it's a customized form and you can have different type of parameter to look into the data. So please have a look and then see what.
Mr. Raman.
Thank you.
I'm Raman from the Center for Budget and Government. And my question is pointing to Kabir, not from my current capacity, but as a former head of State Health Resource Center in one of the states. So the finance data and the health indicators, when you compare that, is there a clear indicator that you are getting about the pace of finance and the pace of health progress? Is there a clear linkage? That is the.
So that was a pilot study where we did actually give a lot of disclaimer. The issue with finance data is the impact of it on health is going to take a long time. So it has to be at least digital data and study to be able to see those correlation. Because for example, tenders awarded after the construction of hospital, for it to be operationalized, to be able to affect MCH is going to, and that is what we are doing with flood case study, where we're seeing at least at a decadal level how things are changing with resilience.
I just wanted to add, for the labor portal itself, you're very right that every data the government collects is available on the portal, on all the portals, all the websites, very rightly said. But if you noticed, one of our panelists has already explained about the mandi prices. He did mention EggMarkNet. EggMarkNet was started, I think, in 2006. And ever since that time, all the regulated mandis are putting their daily prices, both minimum, maximum, modal price, everything on all the commodities of all the markets. But then to use that data was very difficult. This is what he has explained, that even in your portal, labor or any ministry's portal, if it is there, it's very good. It makes a lot of sense. But if you don't open it up, digging down and then going to the portal and then getting what insights is difficult for startups and developer community. So yeah, the same goes for procurement. So if the procurement data is made available in a fantastic dashboard, it not really helps much, except yes, we can all pat our backs. I am also from the government, that we are doing a good job. But why we've got the community here today is basically understand their pain area. If it is not available through API, again, we boast that data.gov.in has got mandi prices through API. He's already mentioned that there are gaps. At times, the API there is a break, or the server has shifted, or there is some issue. So on those days, he has a problem. So this is where once you open your data in an open format, not the scanned PDF that someone was just mentioning, then the quality is subjective, and when people like you come and put a question. Everybody makes an honest, attempt to improve the quality. This is what I wanted to just add. Thank you.
Just ma'am, one follow-up thing. The thing is, I am coming from the same question. Is there a model or a mechanism, because you are using the data which is generated by a public system or a government funded system to pay it back? Because ultimately government is pushing a lot of money in generating this data. So is there a mechanism or a model which right now is not, but you can think of so that it can be paid back to the government?
I feel that the citizens' benefit is the payback. Yeah.
Yeah, just adding to it. So one is, of course, when we look at government delivery service, the idea is distribution of resources for the socio-economic benefit. But then there are very short-term direct benefit as well. As I was talking with tenders data, literally getting value for money, looking at the competitiveness, these are like smaller indicators which can directly benefit the departments financially.
Well, I'm sure that, whatever the use cases have been demonstrated, none of them, they are not doing it for their own, this thing. It is for the public. It is, people's participation is there, especially like in the maps. So people are actually participating and adding on to the layers and in other applications as well. So it's basically, like I said, it's the data was generated for the people, by the people. It is being used by the people. And then a step ahead that we came across in this discussion was the storytelling part. So basically all of these applications, what are they doing? So we from the government, we are generating data, we are putting it on open platforms, but they are the ones who are using, we are also using it, but when we put it on open platforms, it's widely available for everyone. So I think we had a great discussion today, and from being part of the contributors to the OGD, it's a lot of responsibility for us to put the data that is in the formats which can be used by them and not in PDFs. Of course, OGD doesn't allow PDFs as far my knowledge goes, but yes, and the platforms are very interoperable, and once it is placed there, so the users can pick the data and they can develop into stories and then hit on to the target, the focused areas where it is required. So I conclude this by saying that if data is power, open data is empowerment.
Great.
So that's all. Thank you. And
Thank you, ma'am, for concluding it in such a nice way. May I request you and all our esteemed panelists to come forward. Alka ma'am, may I request you to felicitate a small group picture. I think you can come forward. That will be, है ना? यहाँ से तुम दे दो.
I think they can come here.
Yes, yes. All of you, please come. Ma'am. We really had a very interactive, though we ran out of time went for a toss, but it doesn't matter.
Smile. Wait for me. Smile, please smile. Thank you.
Let's give a big round of applause to all the wonderful discussions which we had, very fruitful. Everybody from the government who is here in this room should be ready to accept one thing, that it won't be very, patting your back today. Everyone would point out to things which are not there, which we need to work, including everybody in the OGD team. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for inviting us.
Jaskaran and your colleague, can you please come and help our panelists, please? Thank you, Mr.
Karan, is he there?